this. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to talk about the web ready resizing exercise. And since you guys already have access to the Adobe portfolio site, let's go ahead and use that as our sort of resize parameters. And so what I want to do is I'm going to always sort of start this with what's my record size, right? Like how do I format my images? What are sort of the specifications? You aren't always going to have specific instructions from Justin Schmitz to sort of know what to sort of type into that export button. So I'm doing, Adobe Portfolio image size recommended. I also sometimes like to use the word optimal. And we start to see here that, there's different sort of sizes that Adobe is going to sort of generate for your website, but it's saying the biggest file that they'll ever make is 3,840 pixels on the long edge. And that's for like a 5K or 4K sort of retinal displays. Like, so, you've heard that retina display term from Apple. It's just like a super high resolution monitor. And then it's also sort of saying that like, it's going to sort of use a 1920 pixel wide for screens and 4K. So I always sort of think about like, what's the biggest thing that it can accept? And I usually go with that. But I also sometimes say to myself, maybe not all of my clientele has all of the like super duper high speed internet. And so sometimes I also sort of scale that back. So, again, you sort of have to make a decision. For this demo, I'm going to take the 1920 pixel setup. Okay. I'm also going to sort of say it's going to sort of accept a JPEG, a GIF, or a PNG. JPEGs stands for joint photographic blah 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 group, joint photographic I think it was educator group anyway. But I know that JPEGs are the most friendly format for photographs, so I'm going to pick a JPEG. If I'm in another program, if I'm doing something else, I might sort of select something else. But then also, do you guys see that it says we do not accept PDF files as they are not web compatible? So a PDF file is an Adobe style file. And so that's, not sort of going to be a universal thing. So these three formats are going to be universal. And also what's interesting is it gives us some different options for ways to save this. So it's saying that it wants an RGB color mode. Now, if you have a save for web function, you can do that. We're not going to really sort of use that. We're going to bypass it. But it's also saying that photographs can be up to 50 megabytes. But they sort of say like you want to make sure that your image is maybe 20 megabytes or lower, because that's going to sort of impact your site performance, which is why I'm going to pick this 1920 pixel, because I want my images to load snappy and fast. Have you ever been on a website that takes too long to load and you just go to the next website? Yeah. We don't want people sort of doing that. So I've pretty much got all of my practices. And the one thing that I do know is there are a couple RGB color modes that we've been working in this class, one being Pro Photo, one being Adobe RGB 1998, and the other one being sRGB. And we know, or I'm saying it now, sRGB is the color space that's most compatible with the internet. So I know I'm uploading this to the internet, so I want to go with the sRGB, okay? So I'm going to keep this here just so I have it up and running. And look what I've done, everyone. I have now edited a set of 15 new images based on the parameters of this assignment that I have thought about. And I'm now going to export these to the internet. So some people do this on the fly. Some people like to do this beforehand. I tend to like to set up the folder that I'm going to export to beforehand. So if we go into my 2020 fall Schmitz Lightroom demo, I have all of these different export folders, right? Because I'm always sort of giving a demo to export. I've got my Photoshop work folder where I've been working on my Bosworth triptych. So I'm going to go into my export to folder, and I'm going to do a new folder called Save for Web. Okay. And then what I'm also going to do is I'm going to say Save for Web, and then I'm going to call this Portfolio. Okay. And I'm saying Portfolio because I'm using this for Adobe Portfolio. You can name this whatever you want. So now I'm going to select all of my images in this run because I know that I want all of the photographs to be the same sort of size and parameters. And I only want to do this once. So now I'm going to select all the images. I'm going to do either a Command A or I'm going to do a Shift click to sort of set this all up. And now I'm going to go to File, Export. And I have all of these presets that I've been doing in other demonstrations, but for today, I know that I've got to set up a brand new one because I've got new sort of instructions. I've got new sort of parameters. So this goes back to that idea. So I'm going to do choose folder later, always. I'm going to, for existing files, I'm going to have Lightroom stop and ask me what to do. Have you guys ever tried to do that where you've tried to upload another picture and it's like, hey, there's 2 files here. What do you want to do? I'm going to sort of switch existing files, ask what to do. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do custom name and sequence. Because at this point, actually, my file number isn't as important as my sequence number. I have a couple different ones where I have custom text sequence file number. I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of the file name on this one. And I'm just going to do a straight up custom name sequence. And the reason I want to do a custom name sequence is because I want these to come out in order of 1 through 15, which is how I've sort of ordered them in Lightroom. Does that make sense? Okay. And this goes to Donna's question about copyright and metadata and things. What I sort of always do is I'm going to just start with a custom name called Schmitz Justin, and boom, all of a sudden now my sort of name is going to be embedded in that JPEG file. I'm going to now name this underscore haiku because I'm exporting. Let's say I'm going to sort of put this on my website as my haiku assignment, right? This was my haiku assignment that I just disregarded all of my instructions for and just went to town. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch my start number and make sure that says 1. So now all of my files will say Schmitz Justin underscore haiku -1. I'm now going to go to image format and change my setting to JPEG because that was the instruction that they liked. You can drop the quality of this to sort of get a smaller file size. Personally, though, I wouldn't go anything under 80. And so I tend to sort of be in a 90 to 100 range for compression. I'm just going to go ahead and hit 100 for right now. And if I need to go back and if my images are too big for whatever reason, I'll drop the quality in another export. But I'm just going to sort of go as big and as best as I can at this point. And then I've got my color space drop down. I've got ProPhoto, Adobe RGB 1998. And again, I've decided I'm going to use the sRGB because it is the RGB color space for the web. I'm now down to image sizing, and I want to make sure that, again, per my instructions on the Adobe website, I want the longest edge to be 1920 pixels wide. or long, you know, height or width. And then I also know that my resolution for the screen is going to be 72. So I'm going to make sure that my resolution is at 72. Now there's this kind of interesting checkbox here called don't enlarge. And so let's say I actually have an image that I've cropped radically or I sort of brought in from another thing. What I can do is I can check this don't enlarge. And what will happen is if my image is smaller than 1920 pixels at 72 DPI, Lightroom won't make it bigger. It will just sort of export it out as the biggest size it possibly can. But for us, that's not going to be a problem because what we're exporting are pictures from our camera. But sometimes people might have like taken a picture from the internet or done something for a collage, like, but you're probably not using Lightroom for that anyway. Okay. So now I'm going to come down and I'm going to include all metadata. And this is, Donna, where we're going to get to that point where I'm going to uncheck remove person info because I want to make sure that the person that like any sort of information that I have in there that says copyright Justin Schmitz or is coming from my camera that sort of tags it back to me is not going to be removed. But I am going to remove location info because I don't want if I have a camera that has a GPS in it, like my iPhone, I don't want the latitude and longitude of where I've made pictures showing up. Okay. I'm going to skip watermarking. I'm going to skip post-processing. But before I hit export, I'm going to now do add. And I'm going to make a preset called Adobe Portfolio 1920. And so now I have a preset. So when I upload for my website, all I have to do is go back through and change the custom text. Does that make sense? Okay, so now I've got that set as a preset. And now I'm going to say export. And I always love choose folder later because it lets me go to my external hard drive, go to my Schmitz LR, go to export to, go to save for web portfolio. And now I'm going to make a new folder called Haiku Web, say create, say open, and check it out. Now all of my images are being exported in the order that I sequence them with my name, the project, and then I can sort of upload those straight to the web. I'm going to stop recording and I will take any questions.